The 8 planets of the solar system sometimes converge on one imaginary line. This event is called the Grand Parade. Researchers of the Mayan calendar believe that the next time such a parade will happen when the solar system crosses the equator of our galaxy. There will be a transition of the planet Earth into a new era. They also call the 21st of December 2012 year. But astronomers have calculated that the nearest parade of all 8 planets of the solar system will happen only in 2161st year. Who made a mistake in the calculations? And will the big parade of planets be fatal for humanity? As long as there is a civilization, it waits as long for the end of time. All world religions claim that there will be an apocalypse, a worldwide catastrophe, after which there will be a second coming. Even the belief of American Indians is based on the fact that the gods who created people and built the pyramids will return. What is humanity really waiting for? And who should come? In the Gospel of Mark, one can read that Christ will return. The Muslim world is waiting for the return of its Mahdi, who must restore order. The Jews have been waiting for more than 5,000 years for the second coming of the Messiah. They never considered Jesus to be the Messiah, unlike Christians. That is, both in ancient times and today, we know the expectations of the second coming of the gods. Erich von Däniken is a Swiss writer and researcher. 40 years ago, his book Memories of the Future outraged the scientific world. It describes ancient artifacts that prove that aliens used to visit the Earth. Since then, von Däniken has made great progress in his research and found a lot of new evidence in favor of his theory. He is sure that the world is waiting for extraterrestrial aliens to visit Earth again, because they promise to return. A few thousand years ago, the gods, they are aliens, warned our ancestors, "We will return." And this promise has been transformed into legends, myths, and religions up to the present day. Erich von Däniken was a Catholic and studied at a Jesuit college. He was always confused by the abundance of descriptions of the attributes of God. In addition, the Old Testament word Elohim, meaning Lord, is plural in Hebrew. You can talk as much as you like about the triunity of the Creator, not God, but the gods. The writer is sure that the aliens are so named. And this does not prevent him from believing in a single creator. The researcher found strange texts in the Holy Scriptures. The prophet Ezekiel described a fantastic chariot of the gods. When enthusiastic aviators recreated it, it turned out to be an excellent vertical takeoff device for flights in the atmosphere. There are many such examples in the Old Testament, but Erich von Däniken believes that the most reliable evidence of alien visits is not the canonical Book of Enoch, the 7th patriarch of the Old Testament. The Book of Enoch is sensational. He talks about things he has experienced himself. At the age of 12, 2 aliens came to him, calmed him down, they say, "Do not be afraid," and invited him with them. They disinfected him, changed his clothes, and took him with them to their main spaceship. Enoch is talking to the most senior of them, the commander of the ship. He instructs Enoch to teach Earthlings the language of aliens. And soon Enoch speaks 2 languages and becomes a translator between aliens and humans. Scientific works dictate to him. All of this can be read in the Book of Enoch. Enoch is the best eyewitness. According to the researcher, aliens have visited Earth at least 3 times, each time with an interval of about 3,000 years. People received knowledge from the gods and built pyramids and temples with their help. These structures had a technical purpose. When the gods left, humanity lost their technology and forgot how to use it all. Therefore, since ancient times, people have been waiting for the new arrival of the gods. Erich von Däniken believes that contact with an extraterrestrial civilization will come soon. Some nations even name the exact date of this second coming. Central America, the Maya tribe with its own specific calendar system. The Maya claimed that on the 21st of December, 2012, the gods would return to Earth. I don't believe in this date. Date is like a rubber band. Maybe it will actually happen in 20 years or in 50 years. I do not believe in the date, but I am convinced that the aliens will definitely return to us. And then humanity will have a problem. I call it the shock of the gods. The solar system is designed as an ideal mechanism. 8 planets revolve around their star on non-random trajectories. Strangely, their movement is very similar to what happens in the heart of a computer. Let's draw an imaginary line from the Sun through the plane of all orbits. Let the moment when the planet crosses it be 1. The hour when the celestial body will not be, there will be 0. Fantastic. But what you see is binary code. It is based on the work of all our computers. Thus, the solar system is constantly generating gigabytes of encrypted information. Who is it addressed to? Oddly enough, the ancient Maya Indians knew something about this. 1,000 years ago, they used a binary number system. Their sacred calendar is based on it. This civilization could read the messages in heaven. It is necessary to know certain numbers, certain constants that bind man and the cosmos together as a whole. The Mayan civilization originated on the Yucatan Peninsula 3,000 years ago. It is strange, but over time it did not develop, but fell into decline. 500 years ago, the Maya suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. Their lands were occupied by other Aztec Indians who adopted part of the Mayan culture. And this stone millstone, which supposedly predicts the end of the world, is a clear example of the mixing of two cultures. First of all, it is not a calendar, and secondly, it is not Maya. These, apparently, are unfinished altars on which people are sacrificed, on which human blood flows. Why this is called the Mayan calendar, no one has the slightest idea. This is, of course, due to the general illiteracy in the history of pre-Columbian cultures of America. And the Maya, the Aztecs, and the Incas, what difference does it make? They all lived there somewhere. Some were so mysterious, wise. But then they were conquered and all disappeared. At the same time, the Maya really had a calendar, and not just one: daily, agricultural, lunar, as well as the sacred calendar Tzolk'in. For large periods of time, the Maya used a long account. This is a complex structure based on a mixture of 20, 18, and 13 river number systems. It allowed us to work with dates that were hundreds of thousands of years ago and forward. Why the Indians needed all this, no one knows. The system demonstrates how the days, the cycles manifested, that is, the cycles of the planets, and the inner hidden integer cycles interact and create a whole symphony of the universe. This is exactly what the common people call the Mayan calendar. The digital philosophy of the Maya is recorded in the annals, on the walls of temples and pyramids, and even in the proportions and architectural elements themselves. The pyramid in the town of Chichen Itza has 91 steps on each of the 4 sides. There are 364 of them in total, and another one, 365th, crowns this structure. The same number of days a year.
Pyramids from ancient times, they were revered in any traditions. and they were always built in certain places, and a certain symbolism was embedded in any pyramid. But the most common thing is that probably a lot of people know that any pyramid is not for America, it's the same calendar.
Scientists believe that the key to the secrets of the Mayan calendars is among the frescoes of the legendary Temple of Inscriptions in Polenka. This is a pyramid. The most outstanding Maya emperor Pacal is buried under it. His tomb is the subject of ongoing disputes among scientists. The sarcophagus is closed with a 5-ton slab with an embossed pattern. It shows a pilot strapped to a seat in a spacesuit with a breathing apparatus, next to the control panel of the spacecraft. In front of him are levers, behind is a power plant and nozzles with jets. There is a bas-relief on this tombstone in the Temple of Inscriptions in Polenka. It depicts a man sitting as if on a motorcycle. Right in front of his nose, there is some kind of device. One hand at the top presses some button, and the hand at the bottom turns some kind of device. He is sitting in some kind of chair, behind which flames are visible. The latest interpretation of this picture says that Pacal rushes from Earth into the universe. I think this is very close to the truth. The Maya described their gods as white-skinned, fair-haired people who sailed from the north on self-propelled boats. They taught the Maya people the sciences and built the pyramids of Teotihuacan after the flood. The gods were originally from heaven, but they lived for a long time next to people. So there are supernatural beings there, which we call gods, although they are not really gods in this sense of the mind. And these concepts are more complicated. Here is one of them ascends to the throne. He reigns in much the same way as the kings there later in the 6th and 7th centuries reign. It was the gods who gave the Maya people calendars and number systems based on binary code. According to one version, the Indians gave this knowledge to enable them to communicate with the technologies of the gods. We ourselves, as biological beings, are woven according to the same binary code. According to the study of the DNA code, the DNA code is represented by 64 code words for codons. And moreover, of these 64 possible code words, 20 are directly used. That is, only 20 amino acids out of the many existing ones are directly used in the construction of the protein of all biological organisms. And the DNA code itself is also a binary language. One day the gods left, promising to return. When the conquistadors set foot on the American shores, the Maya rejoiced and prostrated themselves. The Europeans turned out to be very similar to the gods. It was the collapse of great hopes for the Maya. For thousands of years, they have been waiting for their gods and trying to contact them. There is a version that the Indians remembered. It can be done with the help of pyramids. But no one knew how to build a pyramid correctly, turn on, and where to get a source of special energy for this. And precisely because they didn't work, someone came up with the idea to use a source of psi energy, the strongest. All energy, the energy of death, is so strong that if the pyramid allow a certain number of people and to deprive them of life, then this release, as it would include the pyramid. And those priests who were on the pyramid, they suddenly felt a certain effect, a certain voice. The Mayan tradition of mass human sacrifice horrified even the cynical Spanish conquerors. The whole city gathered around the pyramids for a bloody bacchanal. On the days of great holidays, the priests could take the lives of up to 10,000 people. Usually they were prisoners of war. Upstairs, on the altar, the priests were stabbing the victim with an obsidian dagger. The heart was torn out, the blood was poured into a bowl, the body was thrown down the steps of the pyramids. The crowd raged. And after a certain number of people were killed, they were not hurt in numbers. It was about the quality of the people. Sometimes it happened that after the first person of some kind or the 10th, suddenly the priests felt the passage of a powerful energy pulse. That's it, the moment has passed. Now they turned around, went to the center, took this cup, drank blood, cut the heart, and ate it. And here there was a moment of communication with someone. But can you imagine what quality was this energy? The lives of the prisoners was nothing compared to the goal, to establish lost contact with the gods. Whoever the Maya communicated with in this way, it seems that fate has severely punished them for this. The entire Maya empire was conquered and perished in the dust of centuries, although they only wanted to become like gods. Then over the millennia, in order to turn on the pyramid, they start killing people. No one has ever asked people to restore contact with the external mind at such a price. However, even today there is nothing more important for humanity than the answer, are we alone in the universe? Countries are spending huge amounts of money on space exploration. An international network project has been working for half a century, a radio search for signals of extraterrestrial civilizations. But for a long time, no one knew where to look for aliens. There are no extraterrestrial civilizations in our solar system. Well, unless there could be life in the form of bacteria anywhere else on Mars. But these are by no means unreasonable inhabitants. Most likely, these civilizations are light years away from us. Scientists have tried to calculate the probable number of intelligent civilizations in the universe. The American Francis Drake proposed the famous counting formula. At least 10,000 worlds are inhabited by highly developed races.
With the variety of worlds and planets that exist in the universe, of course, life in the universe cannot be a unique phenomenon only for the Earth.
Astronomer Carl Sagan, there are at least 1 million alien species living in our galaxy alone, and John Ora, a comet researcher, thought there were no more than 100 intelligent ones. It would be arrogance to believe that we are the only intelligent creatures. The universe is literally teeming with thinking beings. There is an idea that intelligent aliens capable of communicating with us should represent a similar form of life. And humanoids can only inhabit celestial bodies with similar conditions. Planets around stars outside the solar system or exoplanets, astronomers began to discover only 20 years ago. Today they are known. Then we lay down a hypothesis to find such a life similar to ours on Earth. That is, to find protein life. Here, carbon and its bonds, carbon-hydrogen bonds, are at the forefront, which enable us to blind those molecules that are necessary for life. So, if we take such a basis, then liquid water is necessary for such a life. The water must be in a liquid state. And from this was born such a concept as a zone of life around each star. And just recently, astronomers have found a planet similar to Earth. It is located 20 light-years away from us, near the star Gliese 581 in the constellation Libra. Star Gliese smaller, dimmer and cooler than our Sun, but the planet is closer to it, and there should be enough light and heat. Lisa 581, and 581 is the number in this catalog. So, what's interesting about this star? It has an open planetary system, it has many planets open, and one planet for sure, and maybe even two, fall into the zone of life. Astronomers have named Earth's twin sister Gliese 581g. This planet is the same size as ours, but 3 times heavier and 10 times faster rotates around its star. A year on it lasts 37 Earth days. There's an atmosphere there. Whether there is intelligent life there, humanity will know already in the 2014 year, when the new James Webb Space Telescope will be launched. It will allow you to accurately determine whether there is water, vegetation, and traces of civilization on the planet Gliese. 581G. The situation is interesting because, for the problem of extraterrestrial civilizations, the age of this system is 8 billion years. About our solar system, 5 billion years. Therefore, you see, 5 billion years were enough for us to form a civilization, and there 8. If life originated there, and if it exists there, we are ants to them. Do you understand? Although, maybe it will be interesting for them to communicate with us, so to speak. But, nevertheless, they are at the highest level if, again, they were able to preserve their civilization. And the most recent sensational news that a distant planet in the constellation Libra gave to the Earth is two strange flashes of light. The scientific world rejoices, but is lost in guesses. The distance is too great to understand their nature. Either it's an attempt to contact the bottom of civilization, or it's nuclear wars, or it's just solar flares. How many more planets do we have to discover? What will they be called in space geography textbooks? This is a matter of the coming decades. Deputy Director of the Donetsk Planetarium, Marina Efanova, recalls one strange visitor. More than 20 years have passed since then, but the mystery of his visit has not yet been solved. Marina Igorevna, together with a colleague, was in the Star Hall when an amazing guest appeared on the threshold.
He suddenly came in one day. We were startled. We looked a man in black, very tall, 2 meters tall, long straight hair, such a wide black hat, a long raincoat, almost in general, a very long raincoat up to his feet. Well, I noticed that he had some kind of cylinder hanging on his arm.
The stranger walked for a long time and silently inspected the planetarium's decoration. Then he asked what usually happens in this room. The employees told me. Lectures and demonstrations of the starry sky are held. Sometimes seminars, discussions on the topic, is there life on Mars?
No, I'm not interested. I need a planet. My planet says, give me a list of planets. Well, we looked at each other like that. It became wonderful to us how this adult person does not know the planets, and requires some kind of list. There are so few of them. Well, there. What kind of list can be an enumeration of planets? Well, Mercury is there, Venus, Mars. They began to enumerate. No, these are not the planets. I need other planets. I need another list.
The man in black didn't give the impression of being abnormal. His voice was flat and monotonous. His face did not express any emotions. But the lady lecturers were sure that it was all a hoax. They smiled and winked at each other. However, the guest, hearing that the terrestrial astronomers of other planets do not know yet, suddenly said goodbye and promised to come again. He stepped over the threshold and literally disappeared into thin air.
We dubbed him an alien. I read that there is such a sort of gradation of aliens, and one of them includes people in black.
Each of us at least once in his life at night looked at the distant, and what is there behind them? Who lives there? And will we ever see them? And if so, how will it be good or bad for us?
I don't know why we are so interested in flying saucers and aliens. Maybe someone thinks that they will come and do for us what we have not been able to do for centuries. Or maybe life really came to Earth from outer space, and we are only a link in this endless chain of cosmic life. And somewhere inside of us, we know about it.
The desire of ordinary people to join the search for reason in the universe is an extra job for emergency services. When a person sees strange lights in the sky, he immediately starts calling somewhere and asking what is flying there. Most often, alleged UFOs are Chinese air lanterns and reflections of laser beams of discos. Less often, planets of the solar system, Venus or Jupiter, as well as airplanes, helicopters and satellites. There is a group of Iridium communications satellites orbiting the Earth. It consists of 66 vehicles and is much below any other satellites. Iridium can be observed as fast-flying bright dots. Thousands of people, seeing this group, take it for a UFO.
When sunlight falls on them, and they fly through this territory, this reflection of this light hits the Earth, and we see it as a star-shaped object for 10 seconds. Moreover, it moves smoothly across the sky, that is, it is definitely a UFO. Start your coordinates. The time is indicated when the satellite will fly over this area. And get ready and wait, so the UFO will be on schedule.
And yet, objects that cannot be confused with anything sometimes appear in the sky above the Earth. Alexander Kovalev's interest in UFO research was prompted by an unusual phenomenon he saw in childhood. In the evening, he was walking home from the store. Suddenly, it got dark overhead. The boy looked up and saw a huge black triangular ship against the twilight sky. And over the house, over my house, I noticed the so-called Belgian triangle moving smoothly. But he wasn't as colorless as he is described and shown in videos and photographs. He was just in colors. They were yellow and red. There were two yellows at the top, and there was red at the bottom. Alexander watched in fascination as the machine floated across the sky. The length of one side of the ship was the size of a 9-story house. The UFO was quite low. It seemed possible to climb to the roof and to reach it with his hand. The boy came out of his stupor and shouted to passers-by, "Look! Do you see it too?" Yes, we see. Indeed, people were watching with interest, just like me. There was no hum, there was no noise, the object moved silently. And this clearly indicated that, well, not a man made this device. At the very time when Alexander Kovalov survived his observation, these black triangles kept half of Europe at bay. On the night of the 30th of March, 1990, the locators of the North American Military Alliance near Brussels intercepted a reflected UFO signal. On radar, the object looked like an airplane flying at a speed of 50 kilometers per hour and constantly changing course and altitude. He didn't give any identification signals. It was all suspicious. Two F-16 aircraft were ordered to take off and pursue. The fighters held the target for 6 seconds. The object in an instant reached a speed of 1,800 kilometers per hour, dropped sharply, and disappeared from the screens. I found out that the Belgian triangle has a name, that it is mainly observed in Belgium. It was observed, in particular, both in Russia and in Ukraine. By that time, the inhabitants of Belgium were already in a panic from UFO visits. Many have seen huge black triangles on the roofs of their houses. On their bottom, there were 3 powerful searchlights and a flashing red lantern. Alien apparatuses slowly combed the area with beams, sometimes hovering completely silently over people's heads. Belgian Defense Minister Kemi has officially stated that these objects cannot be ground reconnaissance aircraft. This phenomenon really takes place, but I'm not saying that these are alien ships, aliens. I always say that it is necessary to study. Perhaps, yes, indeed, they are aliens. Perhaps this is due to other changes in the weather. It is quite possible, I do not deny it. It may be our descendants who come from the future. And study history not from books as we do, and from the remains, skeletons of the same dinosaurs. And so visually look not. A common question that astronomers and planetarium workers are asked is what aliens might look like. Among the discovered exoplanets, the majority are gas giants, icy and rocky deserts. Humanoids will be uncomfortable there. In principle, everything is possible in the universe. I can imagine aliens looking like elephants or insects, since evolution is hardly different in other worlds than it is on Earth. But there are other considerations. Suppose humanity was able to make ultra-long space flights. Where will we go in this case? We will initially look for planets that it makes sense for us to visit. The aliens think the same way. Is any other form of intelligent life possible? If this is allowed, then it can be found within the solar system. Scientists have been eyeing Saturn's moon Titan for a long time. It is slightly larger than our moon, but not so empty and cold. His atmosphere is the same as ours, nitrogen atmosphere. After all, we have. We say that sometimes it is oxygen, but in fact there is most nitrogen in the atmosphere. There's a nitrogen atmosphere. There are only 2 atmospheres of pressure on the surface. We have 1 atmosphere. Here, there is a lot of methane and ammonia there. And these are the components in which, well, according to biological hypotheses, maybe not all of them, but at least there are such hypotheses. This is exactly the environment in which life could be formed. That is, there can be life there. Jupiter's moon Europa holds one of the secrets of the solar system. It is to her that the seekers of extraterrestrial civilizations turn their eyes. This is a full-fledged planet, slightly smaller than our moon. The surface of Europe is a solid cocoon of ice. Astronomers have calculated that there is a giant ocean under it. And water is considered one of the conditions for the existence of life. But there really is ice feeding. There may be water in a liquid state. This is a very interesting situation. Here, moreover, this Europe is moving, again, in the strong magnetic field of the planet, and it can be heated. Sensational data was transmitted by the Galileo space station, which flew just 400 kilometers from the surface of Europa. Radio detectors recorded movements in the ocean, under the thickness of ice, and sound sensors picked up a whistle coming from there. The audio files were subjected to computer analysis on Earth, and the result was the greatest discovery for scientists. The sounds from the ocean of the Jovian satellite turned out to be identical to the cries of terrestrial dolphins.
After all, we say dolphins. Well, one step left to reason, that there is speech, that there are individual speech signs, well, that is, an analog of earthly names. They understand each other, but there is no way for them to go there outside yet. In other words, the civilization is not man-made. Not man-made, but civilization may be a mind, not a technogenic mind.
The data from the Galileo station turned out to be so important that American scientists threw the best minds and equipment into a complex experiment. Now in the ocean laboratory, in the strictest secrecy, marine biologists are working with dolphins. They turn on the recording of the cosmic whistle and look at the reaction of laboratory individuals. The sounds received in response to Galileo's audio files are recorded. The next device sent to Jupiter will broadcast them towards Europa. Perhaps very soon, the world will know that another mind has been found, and it is possible to establish contact with it. But the creatures living in the ocean develop according to a different scenario. They probably don't have cities and equipment. I suspect they do that over the thickness of ice, a whole world of stars and planetary systems.
If we live in the ocean, where the water temperature is almost constant, where the external environment is much less aggressive, we may not need to build houses. Another thing to realize that there, over the water, that clear, sharp boundary between water and atmosphere, there is another world, and seeks to go beyond my limits and get out there and create a space filled with water to clear and regenerate, and then another, in these aquariums to fly somewhere.
The generations of the 20th century, brought up on science fiction, are wondering how the first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization will take place. Will a flying saucer land on the lawn in front of the White House, or will we receive a strange and hopeful signal from the depths of the universe? I believe that in the next 20 years, we will come into contact with aliens, and maybe even earlier. First, it will be radio contact, that is, through a radio telescope as part of a network project, and later it will be possible to establish direct contact. Will they come to us with good intentions or an attempt at capture? Scientists argue a developed civilization that has managed to overcome the barrier of its own planet's orbit should be humane and highly moral. Researchers of alien visits object. According to ancient texts, aliens came to Earth to extract minerals, and people were used as slaves. Yes, they supposedly gave us knowledge, but hardly with a disinterested purpose. Most likely, they just needed a skilled workforce. In the past, and I specialize in this time, they came to us with good intentions. Very often, they shared humanity, knowledge, taught various sciences, the calendar, taught to extract metals from the earth. That is, metallurgical business. In other words, in the past, they were gods who helped people. Will they remain like this in the future? Will the same people who came thousands of years ago come to Earth? Or will it be completely different? Will they come with evil intentions? Nobody knows that. Again, is our planet unique in terms of living conditions and mineral wealth? Perhaps there are worlds in the universe that are even more beautiful and more convenient.
There are worlds so different in the universe. They can be so independent, and there is so much space in the universe that there is absolutely no need to create that other civilization for yourself. The problem is to fight with Earthlings. I don't believe in these stories about Star Wars with other civilizations. In my opinion, the contact will be peaceful after all. My deep conviction is that the size of the universe is enough for absolutely everyone.
Igor Berezyuk is a marine biologist by profession, and by vocation a Bart and an artist. He created a unique UFO museum in the Kharkiv Planetarium. All the exhibits are made by his hands. This hall embodies not only the history of space achievements of Earthlings, but also the amazing adventures of the author himself. He didn't believe in aliens until one day he had a dream about them. And in this dream, I see literally to really like this, classic aliens, alien-like. They are so porcelain, they have big dark eyes. But most importantly, they lean on me to be asleep, and they do not cause me fear. It was just such an unusual dream. It was so obvious, it stirred me up emotionally somehow. That is, out of the blue, two aliens arrive in a dream and, telepathically communicating, invite me to a meeting. The artist laughed, but thought about it. So began a chain of strange and amazing events. Literally on the way to work in the subway with a guitar, I find a piece of newspaper. The next day, I pick up this newspaper and see Malebka, Perm Zone, UFO base. There's a photo, as I remember now, two huge balls hanging over a wooden house. And I immediately, in general, have a connection with this dream. Igor Berezyuk realized that he had to be in the Perm anomalous zone on the 28th of May, on his birthday. And then, as if by chance, everything began to take shape in favor of the trip. Suddenly, he met an old friend who gave him maps of the area. Suddenly, several paintings were sold at once, and there was money for tickets. Well, I think, what will happen next? But I have already approved the idea to go. Here. That is, well, in the end, I'll ride on a plate and, in general, I like adventures. The traveler got to the Perm Triangle and was convinced that the newspapers were not lying. And UFOs really fly here. For locals, this is a daily occurrence. The bus driver who brought me to this little village, he talked about what he had observed. He said, "I'm having supper with my wife, it's already evening. And suddenly it lights up over the horizon. The wife says, 'Look, look, what is this?' 3 huge orange balls come out, soar over this place, over this triangle. A triangle came, so the Perm Triangle. Didis is sitting on a bench in this little room with a cigar," he says. "Well, they fly, they fly. They fly especially well in autumn. So what? The artist's birthday has come. He wandered through forests and glades, peered into the sky, asked other tourists. Night fell, but nothing happened. The next morning, the disappointed traveler trudged back. And I met a researcher of the anomalous zone who told him, UFOs in the Perm Triangle do not appear anywhere, but in certain places. People called their most favorite clearing the Cosmodrome. Igor Berezyuk didn't know anything about it. He immediately went to the so-called Cosmodrome and met eyewitnesses there. Their story plunged the artist into despondency. We asked the same question, well, how is it here? And the Belarusian answers us with a cheerful voice. On the 28th of May, 2 green columbines hover over the Cosmodrome at night. But I'm not going to arrange there that they let out a ray of light. That's how he told us. On the 28th of May, they hung for literally a few seconds. Here and then slowly flew away. Could his meeting with the aliens have taken place? Igor Berezyuk believes that this will definitely happen someday. In the meantime, he makes puppet aliens 4 young visitors to the planetarium. Is it worth cherishing a fantastic hope that someday there will be contact with intelligent inhabitants of the universe? Half a century ago, a monument was found in the ancient Mayan settlement of Tortuguera, in the Mexican state of Tabasco. The Mayan calendar and chronicles of events were carved on it. A certain date was marked there. It took scientists a decade to combine the Mayan calendar with the Gregorian calendar. The Mayan calendar cannot end in principle. It's cyclical. Like the Chinese calendar, like the Tibetan, some other Eastern calendars are cyclical. It does not end. It doesn't have a starting point. The starting point that we used to write down the dates of the Maya, which in May we use to write down our dates, it is conditional. It is chosen here. Yes, this is the same day for How, the 8th day of the month in Lol, in the 3114th year of our era. It was possible to calculate the first day as the 11th of August 3114th year, before the birth of Christ. Firm it by a simple count of the number of days elapsed, and there was this calculus. Now we are living in the last Ketun of the 5th epoch of creation, or the 5th sun. It was also easy to calculate the date on which the calendar ended. 5,125 years were added to the conditional point of the beginning of time. This is the duration of a certain cycle of the universe, the epoch of the 5th sun. As a result, we received the 21st of December, 2012 year. But this is not the date of the end of the world, according to German archaeologist Sven Greenameyer. The plaque on which the inscription was found has a chip and may have been read incorrectly. He explained what kind of message is actually encrypted. The inscription describes the return of the mysterious Maya god Balloon Ioti. It sounds like this: he will come down from the sky. This event promises global changes, a change of epochs, not a catastrophe. And it says so there, on the 4th day of Aha, the 3rd day of the month in Niu, the 13th peak will end, it will happen. That's all it says. After that, it is mentioned there. It is unclear in what context, because the end of the inscription is broken. One of the May gods, but since, first of all, the inscription is destroyed, it is absolutely not a fact that he is mentioned in connection with this end of the 13th peak. All about this, of course, the reflections that this is somehow connected with the change of the gods who rule the Mayan cycles, and so on, rest on a very shaky basis so far. The change of gods at the end of the cycle. Why should they change? Supporters of the extraterrestrial origin of the Maya gods put forward a version about the shift method of work of a space expedition, a 5,000-year business trip. But why exactly such a period? There is a version that this period is associated with a certain cosmic cycle. Perhaps in our ever-moving universe, events sometimes occur that allow the gods to visit the Earth. This can be, for example, the convergence of planets or galaxies at a minimum distance, or the combination of energy fields, which opens a space-time corridor between the worlds. But since we don't see any gods today, the mission of the previous landing was completed earlier. Why did this happen, and where did they go? In the annals of many peoples, it is said that the gods left the earth because of a planetary catastrophe. It was a worldwide fire, and then the Great Flood, after which the cold came. Probably there was some terrible event in space that affected the earth and forced the gods to leave it in a hurry. It could have been the destruction of their home planet. They went to save their home and still haven't returned. The end of the world is cancelled. We can look to the future with confidence. Someday humanity will go into space to look for brothers in mind. Or they'll find us. Perhaps it will happen on the 21st of December, 2012.